Daniel Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the big matchup coming up here in Week 10 of this 2022 college football season. And this compared with the Tennessee Vols and the Georgia Bulldogs, basically the SEC East Championship game coming up here in Week 10. You got Georgia, who I consider to be the best team in the nation right now. This team is 8-0. And both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, Tennessee is just an outstanding football team. And they're taking on Georgia, the defending national champions, who are on track to make another run for the college football playoff right now. So obviously a crucial matchup for both these teams and a game that definitely is going to have some college football playoff implications. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this match here today, starting out with your team trends. Tennessee beat Kentucky 44-6 in their Week 9 matchup. They took care of them no problem, and Kentucky's a good football team. That is one of the better teams in the SEC, and Tennessee made it look like they were a terrible team, when in reality Kentucky was ranked 19th in that matchup. And Georgia on the flip side beat Florida 42-20, a good win for Georgia there, and both teams are undefeated heading into this matchup at 8-0. And there's a very high chance. The AP poll currently has Georgia at 1 and Tennessee at 2. The college football playoff rankings, the first edition of the college football playoff rankings, come out on Tuesday night. So we'll see where both teams stand. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee was number 1 in the initial rankings, but we'll see what happens come Tuesday night. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be a matchup between the top 2 teams in the country when it comes down to it. So this is basically a potential game of the century here between Georgia and Tennessee coming up here in Week 10. Definitely the game of the year to this point. Games be on Saturday, November 5th in Athens, Georgia. So the Bulldogs are the home team for this matchup, which is definitely crucial. When you got a matchup that is going to be as tightly contested as this one will be, any advantage is going to matter. And for Georgia, they do have the home field advantage. That is something to keep in mind here. Kickoff is 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Spreads going Georgia by 9. That is the opening spreads. That could change over the course of the week. Over under 65.5. And your FPI is going Georgia as well, 74.9%. So the Bulldogs are favored by a somewhat decent margin, you could say, considering both teams are at the very top of the rankings and both teams are undefeated. And you also got to say, Tennessee, they do have a stronger resume versus Georgia so far this season. They have played tougher opponents than Georgia has. This is only the second ranked opponent that Georgia's played to this point in the season. Meanwhile, Tennessee has played Kentucky, they played Alabama, they played LSU, they played a top 20 Florida team when they were ranked. And Tennessee, they've played multiple ranked opponents. Don't forget about Pitt back in Week 2 when they were ranked 17th. So Tennessee has played a tougher schedule to this point, and they are still undefeated at 8-0. So this is a very real Tennessee team. So his history, Georgia leads at 26-23. Georgia's won the past 5 matchups. And I was looking through the history of these matchups, and Georgia's actually been very dominant over Tennessee in the past few years. The past 5 matchups, Georgia, you could say, has dominated. And the last time Tennessee won was 2016 when the game was in Athens, and they won it by 3. So it was a close game. Georgia's been dominant against Tennessee in the past few years, something to keep in mind. The last time Tennessee won was 2016. Stat comparison for this one, Tennessee is second in points per game this season, 18th in points allowed. So it's not just the offense for Tennessee. That's kind of what they're known for right now, is an outstanding offense with obviously Hendon Hooker and that receiving core. You got, Jalen Hyatt, who has been just going off in the past few weeks. He's got 14 touchdowns on the season already, 900 yards. He is quite possibly one of, or if not the best receiver in the nation right now. And obviously you got Hendon Hooker, who is turning out to be a big Heisman contender, which is wild because, Hendon Hooker just a couple of years ago at Virginia Tech, no one could have dreamed that would be him in a couple of years, but here we are. Tennessee, they're 6th in passers game, 24th in rush yards a game, and the yards allowed, 121st in passing, and then they're 9th in rushing. So that's a huge outlier there. This Tennessee pass defense is one of the worst in the FBS, yet this team is still 8-0 and ranked as the second best team in the nation according to the AP poll right now. So, for Tennessee, they're allowing 300 pass yards a game, which is pretty terrible. And that's something that they're not going to be able to keep up if they want to win a national title this season, just saying it straight up. They're able to beat Alabama, and Alabama passed like 450 yards on them back a few weeks ago. And you still won the game. You scored 52 points on them, but that's not going to work every single game. So this team in the defensive secondary is going to need to be better, and the passing defense will need to be better. And they were pretty good against Kentucky. They shut down Will Levis and were able to force a couple of picks. So that was obviously a very impressive game and a much-needed confidence booster for this Tennessee pass defense before going into a brutal game against Stetson Bennett and Georgia. And they're 9th in rush yards allowed, so nothing terrible there. But as for Georgia, they're 4th in points per game, 3rd in points allowed. They're 7th in passers game, 15th in rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they're 15th in passing, 8th in rushing. So an outstanding Georgia team here across the board, offensively, defensively, everything. And I mean, this is a Georgia team that, I mean, defensively they're allowing 10 points a game, which is outstanding. But they haven't been quite as dominant on the defensive side of the ball versus, you could say, last season when they just every single game were just brutal and just were dominant. But that's, I mean, we still have one more month of regular season action, so that can change. But I mean, allowing 22 points to Kent State, allowed 22 points to Missouri, allowed 20 points to Florida. I mean, this defense will need to be consistently better down the stretch. Moving on to your recent matchups, Tennessee beat Kentucky 44-6, beat UT Martin 65-24. Obviously, the massive win over Alabama there, 52-49, beat LSU 40-13. And that was on the road, by the way. That Tennessee win over LSU, a good LSU team that is 6-2 right now, that was on the road, and they dominated them start to finish 40-13. And they also beat Florida 38-33 when the Gators were ranked in the top 20. As for Georgia, beat Florida 42-20, beat Vanderbilt 55-0, took care of Auburn 42-10. And obviously those two kind of questionable wins. They beat Missouri 26-22, but they were very much in an upset alert there in that one. Yeah, and they beat Kent State the week before 39-22. Your key points for this one, Tennessee 8-0. This team, I would say, was the best team in the nation in October. And it's kind of hard to argue that they're not, or that they were not. I mean, this is a team that beat 3 ranked opponents, beat Alabama, which is the best win out of any team so far this season. And I mean, they just took care of Kentucky 44-6 this past weekend. Tennessee is the best team in the nation right now, in my opinion. I've had Tennessee ranked as the #1 team in the country the past 3 weeks, ever since they beat Alabama, and that's proven true. I mean, so I think Tennessee is the best team in the nation right now. Maybe in September you could argue that maybe Georgia or Alabama was better, or maybe even Ohio State, but I do think Tennessee is the best team in the nation right now. And this team is for real. I mean, in high-pressure situations when they're playing good opponents, this team has come through. I mean, that Alabama game or going on the road to LSU back a few weeks ago, I mean, that was a high-pressure game, high-pressure situation. Even look at that Kentucky game this past weekend, a high-pressure situation, and Tennessee was able to get through that and push through and get a really good win. And so heading into this matchup, the stakes are higher than ever, but Tennessee has proven that they can handle that, and that's a big thing in predicting a game, is seeing whether or not a team can handle the pressure of it. I think Tennessee is very much able to. And Hendon Hooker, he's come through, he's been clutch in situations where he needs to be, and that's obviously huge. And then for Georgia, the second ranked opponent of the season that the Bulldogs have faced. This is a much weaker schedule that Georgia has faced versus Tennessee, but the Bulldogs are still no doubt an outstanding football team. You got to give that to them for sure. They're a brutal defense to score against, allowing 10 points a game. And in turn, I mean, this is probably going to be the SEC East championship game here. I mean, the winner of this game is more than likely going to make it to the SEC championship. And in turn, they're going to have a chance for the college football playoff. And I wouldn't be surprised once again if this was a season where we saw the two teams that make it to the SEC championship end up going to the college football playoff, just because of, if you look at the top 3 teams in Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, unless these teams fall apart down the stretch, which I'm definitely not anticipating. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw that happen once again this season. So this is a game with some major implications, major college football playoff implications. So that said, let's get to the prediction here for Tennessee and Georgia coming up here in Week 10. And I'm going to go with Tennessee to pull the upset outright, 38-35. I'm going with the Vols to win this game. And this is it's a tough game to predict. You got two just excellent football teams here, but the way Tennessee has been playing the past few weeks, that is a big reason why I'm picking Tennessee in this matchup. This is a team that beat Alabama 52-49. They dominated LSU the week before on the road, beat Kentucky recently 44-6. I mean, this is a team that is the hottest team in the nation right now, and they're going to ride that into this matchup and get the win. 38-35. And I do think Georgia scores a decent amount in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if they scored upwards of 30 or maybe even slightly higher, but I think Tennessee's offense is what prevails in the end. I mean, you could say there's a bit of a concern. Tennessee's offense not able to score too many points in this one against a brutal Georgia defense, but I mean, Alabama's defense was thought to be good, and Tennessee scored 52 on it. So, I mean, I feel like this Tennessee team is more than capable of scoring upwards of 30 in this matchup and keeping this game close at least. And I mean, this Georgia defense has been great. I mean, Tennessee's offense with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Don't forget about Cedric Tillman, who's just coming back for this Tennessee team. So, I mean, this is a Tennessee team with tremendous depth. So I'm going to go 55% towards Tennessee, over under 65.5. I'll take the over for this one. If you're going to pick Tennessee in this game, more than likely you should be taking the over. If you're picking Georgia, I mean, honestly, both options are on the table, but especially if you're going to take Tennessee, I definitely take the over. And Tennessee to cover the spread in the end, which is currently 9 points towards Georgia. Unless that changes, I think Tennessee should definitely cover that spread. I think Tennessee is going to keep this game close. I'd honestly be stunned if Georgia turned this game into a blowout. And I think Tennessee's going to keep this close no matter what. And I do think in the end they're going to win this one outright. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup. And I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.